Let's talk some Michigan recruiting because Monday night, the Wolverines landed the last available five-star offensive lineman in the 2025 class. That's right. Andrew Babalola finally committed to Michigan. Now, this was a battle that had been raging for several months, but Michigan ends up on top. We're going to break that down. Also, a big visit weekend on tap in Ann Arbor as Michigan State comes to town. We got E.J. Holland from the Wolverine on this video, and we are going to go behind the scenes of the biggest Michigan recruiting developments. But first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. We want you guys to jump on board. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring in E.J. Holland. So Monday night, five-star Andrew Babalola off the board to Michigan. Take us behind the scenes. How were the Wolverines able to get it done?
Yeah, plenty of fireworks around Michigan. Biggest recruiting win in quite some time. In fact, Andrew Babalola is the first five-star commit for the Wolverines since Will Johnson in the 2022 recruiting class. So it has been a while for Michigan fans who have been craving this big-time recruiting win. And that's what you're getting in Andrew Babalola. You're getting one of the nation's premier tackles, a true five-star talent, a potential first-round draft pick like my guy Charles Power, our On3 rankings director, talked about over at the Wolverine. I mean, he's just a guy that can be that rare true freshman who could come in and start right away for Michigan. I mean, as far as how they won this recruitment, it was an interesting one. Obviously, Michigan continued to be the constant in this recruitment despite a series of delays. If you remember, Babalola was considered a Stanford lean in the summer. He continued to push things back. Auburn tried to make a late run, and Auburn obviously has a ton of NIL to work with, but I think Michigan was just that school that offered the best of both worlds for him. High-level academics, high-level development on the football field, and NIL didn't become that factor that maybe it would have become for other five stars in this era. So I think Michigan did do well with NIL, or well enough, but the two main factors for Babalola were always development, education, and Michigan has that. And plus, you have a head coach in Sharon Moore, who was also previously the offensive line coach, who is also from Kansas, and that played a big role for Babalola as well. So just all around fantastic job by the Michigan staff and just the Michigan program in this recruitment. And like I said, just a huge win for the Wolverines.
Yeah, absolutely a huge win. Oklahoma, also a team that tried to get in there, but Michigan, they closed the door. They get it done. There was a lot of delays. You're right. There was so many. I mean, how many weeks did we hear this is going to be the week that Andrew Babalola decides, only for it not to be the week? But he gets it done on Monday night, announces that he is a Michigan Wolverine. All right, so this weekend, I teased it. I said it's going to be a big visit weekend. One of the premier names on campus, four-star safety Jordan Young. He's one of the remaining uncommitted DBs in America, top 150 prospect, and it's going to be his last visit before his November 2nd decision. So how important of a trip is this for Michigan?
It's a really important trip. It's a recruitment that is very interesting for Michigan in the sense that they brought him in for an official visit in the summer, and then both parties kind of just went their separate ways for a few months. Michigan reemerged as a contender. They decided, hey, let's go back after Jordan Young. We have two safety commits we really like in Ivan Taylor and Kainoa Winston. We have that tall, long corner in Jaden Sanders. Let's go after Young as a nickel. They really like his athleticism. They like his ball skills. They like his upside. And so he's now that top guy as the nickel for this class. Now, will Michigan land him? I think a lot depends on this visit. They're kind of having to play catch up from those few months they lost where there wasn't a ton of, push from the Wolverines. But I think Michigan secondary coach Lamar Morgan has done a really nice job here. They do get his last visit before he makes his decision on November 2nd, which is always a plus. I think right now, though, NC State has a lot of momentum. It's the school closer to home, but they're also offering him the opportunity to go both ways, to play on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver. And that's something that hasn't really been discussed with Michigan. So I'm curious to see how much Michigan gets wide receivers coach Ron Bellamy involved if they do give him the opportunity to play wide receiver. Clemson just had him on campus for a visit. So still some moving parts with Michigan. Like I said, they're kind of playing catch up. The offensive piece is something that's a bit of a curveball for them, but I think they'll be able to answer a lot of questions on this visit. And again, it's important to note that it is the last visit before he makes a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So, two prospects I want to talk about that are actually committed to Michigan, but they could be potential flip targets for Alabama. Ivan Taylor and tight end Andrew Olish. You just hit on Taylor and how important he is to this class. What do you make of Bama's pursuit of both of these commits? Hey, Inside Scoop listeners and football fans, out at the FSU and UNC game next weekend? Well, whether you're cheering on the Noles or the Tar Heels on November 2nd, plan for a pit stop at the Whataburger food truck during your tailgate. Get ready to watch your team by securing an easy W first with a hot, fresh Whataburger, that is, and no matter who comes out on top, when you take your team to Whataburger, you know what it feels like to be a winner by getting your food made your way, fresh and hot every time, 24/7. See you at the game and see you at Whataburger.
Yeah, starting off with Ivan Taylor, Alabama was a school that a lot of people thought he was going to flip to when he was committed to Notre Dame. Obviously, he ended up flipping to Michigan. Now, Alabama has never given up in this recruitment. They got him on campus for that game against Georgia last month and made a positive impression on him and his father. And I think they've really moved the needle with Ike Taylor, who many of you will remember is a former All-Pro. But I think Alabama still has to win over his mom. She did not join them on that visit to Bama. She will or is expected to be on campus. The entire family is expected to be on campus this weekend for the Michigan State game. So I think that's a positive. He also visited Michigan in September for the game against Texas. So I think it's a close battle. I think he likes kind of that professional aspect of Alabama. Ivan grew up around training camp with the Pittsburgh Steelers, seeing, his father play and what an NFL operation looks like. I think that's kind of what you get with Alabama, and that's why that's such an appealing school for him and his dad. But at the same time, Ivan's a really high academic kid. He's connected really well with the coaching staff. He loves what Michigan has to offer on and off the field. He likes the fact that he's a great scheme fit for Michigan, and they're recruiting him as a pure safety and not a nickel. So, yeah, I think there are still a lot of positive indicators for Michigan, but definitely not dismissing Alabama. I think it's a close race. And in terms of Andrew Olesh, I'm not sure how big of a factor Bama will be moving forward. They just landed Marshall Pritchett, flipped him from North Carolina. So, they have two tight ends committed. But, that doesn't mean Michigan fans need to stop worrying about Andrew Olesh. He might visit Oregon this weekend. In fact, I was texting with his father, George, earlier today, and he told me they're in the process of trying to finalize that trip to Oregon for this weekend. So Oregon is one to watch. And then on top of that, you have Penn State. James Franklin visited him at his high school last week, and Penn State is set to get him on campus on November 2nd for their game against Ohio State. So those are the two schools, even though, again, Alabama might not be as involved, those two schools are the ones that I'm really keeping an eye on moving forward.
All right. So another name that I found interesting that's going to be on campus is Benny Patterson. He's a defensive lineman that's committed to Cincinnati, and because he's at a premier position like defensive line, a lot of teams have been coming after him. I know he made a trip out to USC. There's others trying to flip him, but this weekend he'll be in Ann Arbor. Is he a priority for Michigan?
Yeah, I think with Michigan and defensive line recruiting, it's kind of interesting. They are looking for a couple of late risers. I think they want to take two more along the defensive line. Benny Patterson is definitely one. Quante Gillians, who's committed to Syracuse, is another defensive lineman coming in. That's part of the 2025 recruiting class. So, yeah, they're looking at potential flip targets. They had Tristan Abram, who's committed to Indiana on campus last month. So, yeah, they're kind of just sorting through some options right now. Defensive line coach Lou Esposito has been hard at work evaluating some of these guys, building relationships behind the scenes. They're set to get some more kind of under the radar late senior risers on campus next weekend for that game against Oregon. So I don't want to say that Benny Patterson is a true, must land priority right now, but he's a guy they really like. And they like a lot of these senior,
Yeah.
evaluations they've made. It's just going to come down to how some of these visits go, getting to see some of these guys in person as well. Esposito was on the road during the bye week and just kind of sizing them up. But yeah, I mean, I think with all these late senior risers, it's more of a wait and see how the visits go, continue to evaluate them, and see who ends up in the class, because there are, around 8 options right now that fit that description.
Yeah, absolutely. So big weekend up in Ann Arbor. We'll see. The week started off with some big fireworks. We'll see if they can end the week with some big fireworks. A win over Michigan State would go a long way. So Michigan fans, talk to us, comment section below. Who's your top targets going to be on campus this weekend? And also, are you celebrating the Andrew Babalola 5-star commitment? Let us know, comment section below.